said you're going to be on. All right. Good morning. West Virginia Legislature Joint Committee on Finance will come to order. The clerk will take a silent roll to determine if there's a quorum. There is a quorum. First order of business, approval of minutes. Chair recognizes the co-chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of the minutes.
Gentleman from Berkeley County moves to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Now before you, the committee will be Dr. Peter Shirley to review the revenue operations from the month of May. Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. It's always a pleasure to see all of you. Always a pleasure to come and talk about revenues. So I am just going to dive right into it. So for May, this is slide 2 if you all have your packets. These are the revenue collections for the month of May. I'll go ahead and just start at the bottom with the total general revenue. The official estimate for May was $337 million. The actual was $381.5 million, so that was $44.5 million or 3.2% over estimate. So a very strong month for revenue collections in May. Sort of going down the different revenue categories and some of the things that stood out to me in May, starting with our largest general revenue source, the personal income tax. In May, we were $25.5 million over estimate. If you recall from the past 2 months that PIT collections have been very close or even slightly below estimate, a big reason for that is that this past year, over this past filing season, the tax division was actually getting out refunds much faster than they have in past years. And so our revenue forecast was based on the assumption that the revenue filing season would essentially look very similar to where it has in the past. And because they were doing those returns much more quickly, sort of March and April were lower than anticipated. And now May, those returns were sort of paid out in March and April, and now we're into May, and there were fewer refunds that paid out. In fact, in fiscal 26, we had $16 million less in refunds for the month of May compared to last year. So that's a big chunk of that just by itself is that refund filing timing. Something that I mentioned last month when I was talking to the House is I talked about how I like to look at withholding growth as a pretty good measure of how things are going, sort of peeling back these types of timing and refunds and pass-through type items. And for May of 2026 versus May of 2025, withholding was up about $7 million, from about $140 million to about $147 million. So that's about a 5% increase, which is positive. The flip side of that is that it doesn't really look so far like the 5% personal income tax cut that the legislature passed and the governor signed during this past regular session. It doesn't really look like it's sort of fully taken hold yet. If you recall, our estimates for FY 2026 were about $44 million is what we thought would actually hit. We don't see as much of that yet, and so the thing to watch going forward is how that impacts filing season next year, because obviously for this, for whatever part of calendar year 2026, folks aren't pulling out that extra 5%. They're still over withholding from their paychecks. That'll then be something that they're entitled to when they file their refunds next spring. So just something to keep an eye on as we move forward. Sales tax continues to be strong. Again, if you recall, there was some large one-time refund activity in April, again, that I discussed last month that pulled us below estimate. I said, I think that's a temporary blip. I wouldn't be too concerned about it. And here we can see that we were $16.7 million over estimate in the month of May. And so that is something that consumption patterns still remain relatively strong. And you can see that we have growth both relative to the estimate and relative to last year, about a 7.5% growth from May 26 to 2025 to 2026. Severance tax, also above estimate. about 7.1 million below estimate. But you'll notice that it's a decline from May of 2025 to 2026. And there's one specific reason for that. It was mentioned in the release that the governor's office puts out every month about the revenue estimates. There was a Supreme Court case that was recently decided regarding how natural gas expensing works. And essentially, to not get too far in the weeds, the Supreme Court case essentially says that natural gas companies are allowed to expense more of their expenses when they're calculating their severance taxes than the tax division has in the past been allowing. And so that caused us to pay out some of these cases. We still have others that are pending. I think in the month of May, we paid about $19 million in refunds in cases that had been sitting for some as long as 2014. We anticipate that there'll be another 8 figures, low 8 figures, but another 8 figures of refunds that'll go out over the next several months. But then also looking forward, because this has been a Supreme Court case, it is something that will affect our revenues going forward, because now this was the ruling, and this is the environment that we now have to operate on. That they were not allowed to. It's complicated, but it had to do with some transportation expenditures and a safe harbor provision. Without getting too far in the weeds, tax said, you're not allowed to do this. The natural gas producer said, we are allowed to take these expenses out. They took it to OTA, eventually the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled in the favor of the natural gas producers. And so because the Supreme Court ruled in that way, we've paid out the money that otherwise would have been paid in severance. So we had to refund that money out.
If I heard you accurately, you said the corporate net was down due to the big, beautiful bill.
That's correct.
And so do we expect that to keep tapering down? And if so, what would be the effects of that?
I think we're expecting it to come closer to leveling off here in the near future. A big part of this, of course, is that, some of these, some of the provisions from the big, beautiful bill were related to R&D. They were related to, there was temporary expensing for new manufacturing facilities. So some of those pieces that were in our estimate, they'll take some time to hit, because no one sort of was, ready, boots on the ground to break ground on a new manufacturing facility day one when that came into effect. So looking forward, our corporate net is going to continue to, it's not going to have nearly as significant of a decline as we saw this year, but it could continue to have a little bit of a downward pressure, yes, as those sort of fully incorporate into their returns and their business activity.
So is that something, I guess, as both committees of the House and the Senate, we need to be proactive in trying to replace that income elsewhere, or?
I think there you would get more into a, revenues versus expenditures type of discussion where, what level of expenditures do you need to replace that revenue?
And can you talk a little bit more about, you mentioned coal being flat right now versus where it's usually a little bit more volatile, what the effects are on our state budget in regards to that?
So it being flat is really both good in some ways and bad, because obviously when we have boom times, we have more additional severance tax coming in, and that's good. But one of the things I think that has made, I think probably the single largest thing that makes the revenue forecasting part of our job difficult is that severance tax is inherently volatile. And so to some extent, having it be relatively stable is in that way, it's a good thing, because it's predictable. We can understand it. We have a much better idea of what to expect. Whereas, something like we've seen in the natural gas market over the past 6 months, here it's been a boom. So that's been very good, but it's also something inherently that we can't plan for.
And so I guess my next question, it's a little bit different, but as far as the gas tax, I know that several of my caucus members and some other people, for that matter, have talked about suspending that. Have you all done any modeling or anything on what that would look like to give West Virginians relief versus another pathway?
I'm trying to remember. I have, and I don't want to dodge the question, but I also don't want to give you too much of sort of what I'm just trying to remember. but I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of if you suspended the gas tax for an entire year and you assumed that someone drove about 12,000 miles and they got about 25 miles to the gallon on their vehicle, sort of an average distance, average fuel economy, it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $150 for the year.
Okay.
And that would be for the motor fuel tax, which is the largest component of the state road fund. It's somewhere between $35 and $40 million per month that the state road fund would not have every month that the gas tax is suspended.
And I guess if there's been any detailed, like, again, suspending it for a month, let's take a month, right? Versus people not driving as much and what that looks like long term.
So again, for 1 month, if you took that to be 1,000 miles, if you take the 12,000 and divide it by 12, 25 miles to the gallon, that would be 40 gallons of gas. And then at 35 cents per, you'd get $15, somewhere around there. That feels right because I said 150 for the year. So somewhere in that range, again, trying to do that math in my head as I go. So please don't hold me to those exact figures, but it would be about $15 for someone who drove 1,000 miles and got 25 miles to the gallon. And then that would be somewhere between 35 million and 40 million that would not go to the state road fund.
And do we have other places that we could potentially get that from?
Other places that you could potentially
Shift that money to the roads if we needed to.
I think the legislature has authority to appropriate funds to the road fund as they see fit.
So we could.
Yes.
Next question. Can we spend on existing programs at current rates with the budget that we've allocated?
I think you'd have to be a little more specific than that. I'm trying to. That is a very complicated question with a very detailed answer where I'd need about an hour of caveats to give you what I actually think is the answer to that question.
Well, I appreciate that. And if that's something that maybe we could have prepared for next interims, maybe, since it is maybe a little bit more complicated in nature, and I understand that. So we can, we can.
Also, I focus more on the revenue side. I'm not so much the budget person, so I'm not the most qualified person to answer that particular question.
Understood. And where are we at in regards to the 6-year plan?
In what way?
So we've always done those forecasting out, right? Of what it looks like in 6 years. Are we going to be up? Are we going to be down? Are we going to be able to sustain again programming? Currently, as we sit here today, since the governor has come in and laid out 6-year plan, where are we at? Are we on track? Are we not?
I believe that the 6-year plan, and again, this is trying to go from what I can recall. I believe when the governor first took office, the 6-year plan for fiscal year 2028, which is where we're going into, where we'll start thinking about the next time this budget process comes through. I believe the gap for fiscal year 28 was somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 to $500 million. And I believe as we sit here today, there is still a gap. It is still significant, but it is less. It's 300 million-ish.
Thank you.
Any other questions on revenue?
Mr. Chairman.
Gentlemen from Berkeley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pete, appreciate it as always. You mentioned a couple of times the 19.6 million that was paid to the gas company as a result of the Supreme Court case. What have you found out or what are your projections as to how that's going to affect tax collection in 2027?
So we think that, it was a provision. It was a 15% safe harbor provision is sort of the specific thing. So you could imagine that and we're still doing analysis on this because part of the problem in giving you a solid answer was which companies were doing this, which companies weren't doing it, which ones are now going to change their behavior. And we really have to go almost company by company to do that kind of forecasting. But it could be as much as 15% of our natural gas severance collections. I anticipate that, for a year where we have relatively high gas prices like we have now, it could be upwards of $30 to $35 million on an
Yeah.
annual basis.
Okay. And so you mentioned 15% of our total severance tax collection. I see.
Sorry, natural gas specifically.
Correct. And I see that the year-to-date severance tax collection is about 471 million. Do you have those numbers off the top of your head to break them down by industry?
I don't. I would probably refer you. Oh, you know what? I have here on slide 5, I'd written down what the trend looked like that most recent month there on the annualized basis. I had 347 million for natural gas, 191 million for coal, and 101 for all other.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Question of the chair, going back to this rebate on the severance tax based upon the Supreme Court case. There was talk about there's going to be some additional rebates involved. Do we know approximately how much that rebate is going to be? And based upon the fact of our timing on the fiscal year ending here in a couple of weeks, it appears that any more additional refunds will happen in the next fiscal year. Do we have any anticipation on what that's going to do to next year's budget?
I believe that figure is somewhere, the amount that's left. I believe when we initially were discussing it, we were anticipating a total of about 35. And so if you take out the 19 that we've already paid, 16-ish is about where we're at. Part of and you're correct that it very well could end up hitting in next fiscal year. And part of that was some of these specific cases, most of them were held at OTA while it was the Equinor case, while the Equinor case was being decided, and now sort of that decision is funneling down. But there are procedural things that have to go through. Some of those cases were about just this issue. Some of those cases were about this issue and some other issues. So sort of if they were saying we owe you $5 million, we think we owe you $5 million less, how much of that was specifically due to this piece of the argument versus how much may have been due to some other piece. So we're still working to untangle that. But to sort of more precisely answer your question, we think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about another $15 million that will have to be paid out. And at this point, it does look more likely than not that those refunds will be paid in FY27 rather than 26, simply because, we're already halfway through the month of June. So about $15 million. FY27.
And also I understand too, that when an order comes out from the Supreme Court, there's 30 days involved before it takes effect. So even if we have done these rebates, there was a 30-day possibility of delay involved because the order would have not taken place.
I'm not aware of that. From our discussions, it was, this has been done and it's final and we need to prepare for the eventuality.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you very much. Any other questions on revenue? Gentleman from Cabell.
And I apologize, one more question, and you might not be the most appropriate person, but you were talking about, again, the big, beautiful bill earlier. In regards to the provider tax phase down, what effect will that have on our budget, and when will we start to see the effects of that?
So, I mean, we're seeing it today. So the way, if you, it's a little bit buried in there, but if you look at the 6-year plan, the 6-year plan had built into itself usage of the cash balance from that provider tax money to sort of phase down over time and sort of phase in the usage of general revenue dollars to keep that budget whole. So essentially, the provider tax came online. There was this large sum of money that we all recognized as being one time because the big, beautiful bill took effect and said you can't keep collecting that. And so the plan was to use that money over a period of, I believe it was 5 years, to sort of phase down that cash balance and to utilize that over time and to phase in replacing those dollars. And I believe the last 6-year plan that I looked at, the amount by which the usage of that cash was going to go down by was about $41 million per year. So in other words, we were going to use $41 million of cash less each year until we had used all of it.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Now before the committee, we will discuss the independent audits that have been presented by BDO and others. First up will be the Commissioner from Corrections, David Kelly. Would he please come forward?
Slides. I didn't bring any slides or handouts. I always, and to follow Dr. Peter Shirley is something that is next to impossible to do. I'm still trying to figure out on my fingers and my toes some of the numbers that he came up with, but you do a great job. Good morning. This is like coming home for me. So many friendly faces, so many folks that I haven't seen for a while. And we were asked to prepare some things based on some questions. I came up with some notes that I want to go over with you this morning. When I was appointed to the position of commissioner almost a year ago to the day, one of the things that I wanted to address was top on my list was the high cost of litigation that we were facing as a division. And DCR leadership from the top to bottom are looking at our training, our use of force policies, facility safety, deferred maintenance, and the implementation of technology within operations to reduce these costs and maintain a safer environment for both the staff and the inmate offender population, as well as ACA accreditation for the entire agency. And I'll talk a little bit more about ACA accreditation in a little bit, but that's American Accreditation Association, which is something that I'm passionate about for our whole division. The implementation of body cameras is one of the top priorities of the agency. The implementation comes with necessary budget increases of approximately $500,000 to maintain the software. And I believe that the legislature actually put that in the budget last year, the maintaining money, and equipment expenses of approximately $1.8 million for initial purchases of the body cameras. The agency had requested additional funding throughout the budget process for fiscal year 27, but was unsuccessful. As a result of that, we have applied for 3 major grants with the hope that we'll get the funding from them. Another piece of technology that the agency is extremely interested in implementing is an automated tag-to-door security system. This type of system logs all security checks, ensuring the documentation is accurate and always accessible. Documented security checks in situations such as suicide watch, detox protocol, miscellaneous special watches. These require time-sensitive log keeping. And documentation is key to litigation. Anyone in here would understand that, know that if we don't have the proper documentation, then we have an uphill battle. So documentation is important. This type of system is not only ensures accuracy, but makes the task much more manageable, vastly reducing the amount of manual log keeping. The agency has also applied for 3 major grants to try to secure funding for this technology as well. And then the agency has put forth a very aggressive roadmap with regard to ACA accreditation. There is an extensive list of facilities that will be having mock audits throughout the rest of this year and begin working toward the final accreditation. Now, our academy and the prisons will be the first level of accreditation, followed by jails, and then it is anticipated that the juvenile facilities will follow the jails in the accreditation process. This is not going to be something that's done overnight. It's not something that we'll be able to do quickly. Our goal is to complete accreditation in our 9 prisons and 2 of our regional jails in 2027. And I'm really excited about that. The remaining 8 jails and hopefully 2 of our juvenile facilities are scheduled to be completed in 2028. and the remaining 7 juvenile facilities will be completed in 2029. And then, as you can imagine, the process will continue all over again because accreditation is an ongoing process. The agency feels that these 3 priorities alone will be substantial in cost savings toward litigation. Remember, that's number one with us. We have to cut the costs that we're paying because of litigation. We believe that we can do that with the implementation of the body cams. The body cameras, as you know, will cut down on the use of force, those claims, and it does 2 things. It protects our good officers, and unfortunately, we don't always have all good officers, so it will reveal those who aren't doing their jobs. It also protects our inmate population, and it will also reveal to courts those that need to be prosecuted for things they're doing if they're doing it inside a jail. So these are 3 things that we're looking at as being vital for us. Now, another area that they addressed, and you all asked us about, was workforce challenges. And the agency consistently is striving to reduce workforce turnover. And I believe that we're seeing an upturn in that now. We're seeing that the effort that this body put in 2023 is really paying off. The agency continues to see benefits of better and consistent training as well. Now, here's where I'm very proud of what we've seen as a result of what this body has done in the past for DCR. DCR's overall vacancy remains consistent at 13%. DCR's correctional officer, that's our uniformed officers, is currently a rate of 9.8, and that's nothing short of a miracle. And that has to do with the pay raise that we're doing, and also the longevity, the 3-year increments that we're paying for these officers, and they're staying, and we're proud of that. Some of the recommendations that were cited in the BDO report, such as reducing cash bail and additional pay raises for Division of Corrections, require legislative action. You know that, and so I don't even, we don't need to talk about that very often, but it does require assistance from you all. Offender management system modernization. As a report indicated, DCR is actively working to produce a new offender management system. DCR is interested in exploring the connectivity of the system with the Supreme Court. And those discussions are ongoing. Both parties have indicated that there's an interest in that connectivity. The agency was asked to provide time frames for implementation. Now, this is where it gets a little tough. The federal grant cycle runs from fiscal year, which begins in October. We're extremely hopeful of successful funding for the body cameras and the automated security system program. Once those grants would be awarded, the agency would need to procure equipment and integrate the systems into operations. We would estimate it would be 2 fiscal years before the agency would see any impact from these ventures. The agency was asked if there would be a reduction in the fiscal year 2028 budget request, and due to the time frames of initiation of these measures, we do not expect any reduction in the budget for fiscal year 2028. Now listen, DCR's mission is one of public safety and the obligation to consistently incarcerate or house approximately 10,000 offenders. That means that our budget is hugely affected by inflationary factors such as medical care, food cost, and energy cost, all of which are going up. The agency was asked how we would keep the legislature informed of the progress of implementation, and I believe that my former position with you all helps me to know and be able to say to each of you that we have an open door. We would love to sit down with you. Anytime you have questions, we'll be happy to present before this body or any other body of the legislature. We're proud of what we do. And we pride ourselves in transparency. And Mr. Chairman, that's all I have prepared
All right,
this
sir.
morning.
Let's see if we can get some questions. Questions for the commissioner? The secretary. Gentleman from Mercer County.
Thank you. Good to see you this morning.
It's good to see you too.
Um, we, we don't have a written report here, which is fine. But do you have any, general numbers as to, number one, the cost of implementing the recommendations that you have suggested and the relative dollars that we'll be able to save from implementing those? Can you give us a
Well,
roundabout figure on
I
those
can
two
tell
items?
you this, the number one driver of the first three things that I talked about, ACA accreditation, the cell check, and the body cameras, is to reduce litigation. Now that does not show a savings in the budget. It won't show a savings in the budget, but Brim will be thankful, because I honestly believe that we're going to see, and so did BDO, a reduction in lawsuits based on these two things. I can't put a number with it. I don't have a number. I can tell you that the 1.8 million is what it's going to cost us to get the body cameras. I don't have the number, but I could get it for you, for the next one, which is the cell check. And I'll tell you why we want to do that, and that is to make sure that people aren't just logging that they checked something when in fact they didn't. This is something that we have to do to improve performance inside our facilities.
Okay, but none of the other items that you mentioned, you don't have a
I don't have a
cost estimate
No.
or a savings estimate?
No, and I can, and again, I'll say that we don't anticipate a cost savings in the budget based on what BDO is suggesting, because we have 4,000 employees, 10,000 inmates, 10,000 folks, and we're driven by inflation. Our medical costs will go up, our food contracts will go up, our energy costs will go up. And so we're trying to find ways to streamline and to do the best we can with the challenges that we have.
Okay. So based on that, just summarizing, you don't anticipate any cost savings here of significance?
Just to
And-
litigate on the litigation side.
Based upon that, I guess the cost of the jails currently that are being borne by the county commissioners with what their jail bill probably is not going to see any difference significantly.
Not by this, but
Yeah.
but there are efforts to address that.
Would you like to, you shouldn't open that door. Would you like to, would you like to peek through it and
Well,
talk about it a little bit?
no,
Well,
not today.
How about if I specifically ask you to peek through it and,
Well, we
talk
don't,
to it
as you
about it?
know, we have nothing to do with setting jail per diem. And we know that the counties are concerned about that, so is the state.
Well, and that's the reason I didn't say that to be critical, but obviously I have a county commission that is vociferous in their argument with regard to what they pay every month. And you and I had this conversation.
We did.
I offered them a few thoughts as to how I thought that they could implement some actions that might be able to help them reduce that, and they prefer to just complain about it. So I'm just looking to see if there are any other relief avenues with regard to that. I also mentioned, I haven't gotten this information yet. I did have a specific meeting with the county commissioner, and he indicated to me that there were a few sections of code that caused them some problem that they felt like might elevate their jail bill. I wasn't familiar with it, and certainly not an area that I'm aware of, but I asked him to send some citations, some areas that we could look at and maybe make some changes. I've yet to get that. Are you aware of anything that we have currently in state code that might unduly elevate those jail bills?
I am not.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman from Cabell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. Always a pleasure to see you. Quick question, when you talk about litigation, do you have a general amount of how much litigation is now, what the costs are?
I don't have those numbers, but I can tell you, when we lose a case or when a case is settled, that comes from BRIM money. And it wouldn't take many settlements to come up with the $1.8 million savings that we would see immediately.
Yeah, I believe there was a BDO study done a few years back that said that about 40% reduction in litigation costs with body cameras. Are you aware of that one?
I am not aware of
Okay.
that one, but I would agree and I would be surprised if it's not higher.
You also talked about doing ACA accreditation and training better on use of force. The BDO report also cited more stationary cameras, maybe even before body cameras. Any consideration doing more stationary cameras as well?
There is consideration, but as you know, that costs.
Of course.
That's a cost to DCR, and we're looking at this to have every officer that's down the hallway equipped with a body camera so they can protect themselves and so the inmate or can be protected as well. And there will be a record of whatever takes place. And stationary cameras don't always tell the whole story
Of course.
like a body camera does.
And could you maybe, provide to the committee what those litigation costs are? So as we're
We,
going that avenue, we can look at that as opposed to the body camera costs as well.
I can, my chief of staff's in the
Yeah.
back of the room. We'll get those numbers if we can to
Okay.
you.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank
good
you,
to
Mr.
see
Chairman. You too, sir. Thank you.
Gentleman from Upshur.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Suboxone.
Yes, sir.
I'm hearing reports from families of incarcerated individuals that we're distributing Suboxone in the regional jails and the DRC. And we're turning out people that weren't addicted before that are addicted. Can you explain what we're doing there? And
If somebody requests that, then that comes from the medical side of it, the Wexford, the folks we have contract with. If they request it, they'll be evaluated, and then the determination would be to give them or not to give it to them. But if they request it and their logic meets what Wexford would require, then that would happen. Now, as to and to go further with that, I don't have any knowledge or any evidence before me today that that's happening. If it is, it's tragic, but I don't know that that's happening.
can we may possibly see a report in the future on this?
Well, I don't know where HIPAA is concerned. I mean, we'll do what we can to get a report on it. I believe that our doctor, Dr. Davenport, has spoken before some of this body at one time about our protocols and our procedures.
Thank you.
Gentleman from Berkeley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here. You're looking very dapper as ever.
Well, thank you.
Just to follow up real quick on the gentleman from Upshur, do you know what the cost we spend in the corrections for Suboxone annually?
I do not.
Okay,
We could get that number for you, possibly.
that would be great. Thank you. I also want to go back to the accreditation. You're saying the facilities will be accredited over the next 3 years, 27, 28, 29, and then it'll start all over. So is it a 3-year accreditation?
Yes.
And that's why we're doing
Yes.
it that way?
Yes.
Okay, very nice. And then do you know what the cost of the accreditation is?
No, I don't have that number. It'll vary by facility, but
Okay.
there will be an upfront cost. As anything that saves money, there's going to be an upfront cost, and then we can drive money down again by litigation.
And then
Including
that
litigation.
cost will be incurred annually as well.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
thank you. Good to see you.
Gentleman from Cabell County.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Good morning to you. So my first question is, and first I'd like to give thanks to all of us as members for making that pay raise. That was a huge lift. But I also fear that it might not be enough. Have you done any look-arounds on where we rank next to our neighboring states on our pay raises?
I have not, but as you know, I have a passion to take care of our non-uniform folks as well. And we had legislation, somebody in this body had introduced legislation that got some traction this year. We're not looking at increasing the salaries of our officers immediately, but we're always looking at that because we have to remain competitive with the surrounding states.
Sure. And to continue the line of questioning from my friend from Cabell, as far as the litigation and those costs, what are we doing in regards to BRIM and all those things? What are we doing on the front end as far as our screening process? So i.e., do we have any policies in place that, let's say if there is what I would call a rogue officer or something of that nature has done something at a facility, are they banned from being hired again? How does that play out?
That's a great question. That's a great question. We do an intensive screening process. And here's the good news. Used to be if we had a hiring event and we had 20 openings and 20 people showed up, we were desperate enough that we hired them all. Well, that's not the case today. If we have 20 positions and 20 people show up and 15 are qualified, guess what? We still have 5 vacancies because we're not going to hire the other 5 because they don't qualify and they don't meet the standard. Now, if somebody does something and they're dismissed, they're, for the most part, I can't say it's 100% across the board, but if somebody is fired or terminated, they're not coming back.
So you said for the most part. So I want to know specifically if somebody is dismissed or suspended, they've had a litany of infractions at
They're
other
not coming
places.
back.
And not just coming back, are they able to be hired at another facility?
No, that's what I mean. Statewide, they're not coming back.
And when we're talking about cost, are we looking at any other alternative energy sources to keep your costs down? Or have you looked into that?
Well, we've looked into it, not in depth, but we have looked into it. And again, there is always going to be an upfront cost in order to save money. There's that upfront cost. So we're looking into it, but we haven't gotten into it that deeply.
Yes, sir. In regards to medical care, and I understand, and I know we got a couple docs in here. I think the going rate of inflation for healthcare is probably somewhere around 11%. But besides that, what would you say the breakdown of our care, whether it's general care, even geriatric, mental, or anything along those lines that we might be able to, as a legislature, alleviate some of those costs for you?
Well, I don't know. To begin with, you'd have to explain how you might want to alleviate those costs because go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. So sorry. So let's say if there are some care, elderly care, right? Is there anything we could do to alleviate that from you by having a look back period, transitioning to a different program, if you will, if they are a drain on the system for being there so long, or if there are other things that we are rendering through our system that would be better placed elsewhere?
I would simply say to the gentleman that would be something you all could look at if you chose to do so as a legislature. Now, I will tell you that St. Mary's has 2 areas where they take care of the older inmates, and it's a very successful program that they have up there for our aging inmates, aging population. But as far as alleviating, I think that's kind of a policy question that you all have to decide. We'd be willing to sit and talk, and if you could come up with cost-saving measures, then of course, I think everybody might be interested in a conversation there.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a collaborative exercise.
Absolutely.
From where you are seeing that every day. And if you could provide us of a breakdown of where those medical costs are coming from, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Any other questions? Gentleman from Kanawha.
Very much. So glad to see you here.
Good to see you, my friend.
So I know you touched a bit on the back and forth on the potential for saving money in litigation with body worn cameras, and the BDO study has some various estimates there, and there's not a clear way to know for certain. Can you touch also on there were some other, in addition to stationary cameras, there were some other suggestions in here to reduce litigation, and some of them focused on just how you get your personnel, such as, more rigorous psychological testing, things like prohibiting use of pepper spray, other things.
Yes.
Can you touch on any of those?
We're looking at our policy with regard to pepper spray, with regard to the tasers. We're looking at those areas. Uses of force are something that will happen. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about that. But what we're interested in is reducing the number of excessive uses of force. Those are the things we believe that we can tailor, if you will, with the body-worn cameras. Also, someone's going to be less likely to use pepper spray if he or she is wearing a body-worn camera, because it's there. It's there, even if it's out of sight of a stationary camera.
One of the other suggestions was, is there a policy right now on prohibiting officers from being alone with offenders?
We try not to leave them alone with offenders. We try to, but it doesn't always work that way. Our goal is to not leave them alone with offenders.
Is there a set policy, though, that one should not be alone?
Let me get back with you on that.
Okay. And then can you talk just about the psychological testing BDO recommended both before and after hiring?
Yes. Well, we have and I'm not sure the proper name of it, but there's a psychological assessment that's done on the hiring side of it. We, to my knowledge, do not do that afterward, but I do think that's a good idea. Particularly if there's been some instance of violence done to that officer, something's happened. I think that should be something we would look at.
Can you provide the committee with more details about the existing psychological testing?
I
as part of
certainly can.
The hiring battery?
Yes,
Okay.
it's just it is not a detailed psychological. It's just a very brief. And from that, and I can supply that to the committee.
Have you considered doing a more thorough one?
It's always a possibility. Yeah.
Everything
With-
is a
with-
possibility.
Yeah.
Yes.
With,
I mean, this is a comment. I mean, at the federal level, right, there are a lot of, the hiring pipeline is really a challenge, and it's hard to find good employees, right? And so there's a real balance there. But
yes, and again, I will say this to you: we are not just hiring everybody that comes anymore.
Sure.
Those days are behind us because we're able to start them at a good working wage, and if they have any law enforcement experience, then of course they would hire in at a little higher rank. So we're not hiring just everyone. So that in itself is weeding out some of the folks you may be talking about, but we're not going to get it. We're not going to be 100%. So yes, I think we could look deeper into the psychological side of it.
I think that'd be really helpful.
I agree.
Some of these things you just can't predict from someone's
I
past
agree.
experience or anything
Yeah,
else.
I
So,
agree.
okay, thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Any other questions from the committee? Gentleman from Montague County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. Appreciate it. So you had touched on automated doors. Did you just now start using the automated doors?
No, these are the self-check. It's a swipe. We're not using them. We want to use them. We have a
Okay.
pilot program that's using them, and it's very effective.
So the swipe is effectively kind of like a hotel room where you put your card up to it.
And it's a fail-safe in that you can't, if let's say you're the officer, you can't just sit somewhere and say, well, I checked that and check it off. You have to be there to swipe that. And then we're going to know you actually put eyes on somebody.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then do you have any negotiated energy contracts?
No.
Okay. Have you looked into doing that?
We
to try
have.
to save?
We have.
Okay.
Yeah, and we continue to look at that. But
Have-
again, I'll say that we have those require a lot of upfront costs.
Legal costs to negotiate the
No,
contract?
not to negotiate, but money,
Okay.
investment,
Okay.
upfront investment.
Okay.
That's a better phrase.
Okay. And then, have you seen your energy rates increase
Of course.
significantly like most other
Yes.
people on planet Earth? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, sir, that's enough. Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Now before the committee will be the Department of Transportation. Todd Runball, please come forward.
Good morning, everyone. Give us a second to, I do have a PowerPoint. Okay, ready to go. Well, thank you for having me here today. It's an honor and a privilege to be in front of you here to provide some transparency and some clarity about the BDO audit and efficiency report. So for us, I thought I'd touch a little bit on the implementation. You know, on the audit report and everything that was put out, most everything that they have on there is in some type of initial phase. There are a few things that we've completed. There are others that are further along. Part of this, as we went through this, if you read through the audit report, talked about our organization and our org chart. Part of the new org chart recommends some additional executive leadership, and part of bringing them on will help accelerate the implementation of this. And in addition to this efficiency audit that was ran by BDO, we had started one internally called Moving Citizens Forward. When I first came into office, we knew there were a lot of things that we were not doing very efficiently. So we put together folks from out in the districts, folks from central office, and we started our own program internally, letting them analyze things and look at things and come up with an efficiency plan. And it's called Moving Citizens Forward. And so those two plans are actually pretty much in sync with each other. It's quite remarkable that our folks and BDO came up with the same stuff. But BDO was much faster than our folks. They came in October, had their draft done and submitted in January. And we have been working on those and trying to implement what we can, where we can. And hopefully I'll be able to go through here and explain where some of this $50.6 million in savings is going to come from. And with us, we truly never have savings. We spend every dime you give us. If we don't spend it on something, we move it over into something else and spend it there. We try not to leave any money on the table, and we'll spend all the money and every penny that you give us above and beyond that. So moving on to one of the first and one of the largest areas was the contractor oversight and accountability. A big part of this is permitting, and it is several different things about permitting. One thing that we have done, and of course that the entire state is doing, is going to the one-stop shop. We are moving into it with our permitting system, but we also have our own online portal that we started not quite a year ago, but it has helped improve our permitting tremendously. Permitting for any type of permits to work on the highways or to work access permits, driveway permits, everything. It's much better. It's online. It's tracked. We keep track of it. It has improved tremendously. And so we've seen a lot of improvement there. But the big savings that we are seeing comes with permitting that has to do with our own construction contracts. Most of you know, you go out there, you'll see the construction folks show up, they'll put the signs up, and then the project stops for a while. And you wonder what's going on. Well, what happened during the Roads to Prosperity? There was so much work out. They started putting out what we call dirty permits. And every project we put out, different groups have to certify that the permits are there. They have to certify that the environmental permits are there, that the railroad permit's there, that the right-of-way is permitted and clear, and that the utilities is permitted and clear. And what happened in that overload, in an effort to get the work out, they were putting out permits where those things were not clear. There were dates put in the contract that said it would be clear by this date. And then what happened when we got to construction is those dates weren't met. And when that happened, the contractors had to shut down. And they sat idle and waited and waited and waited until we got a railroad permit. We got the right of way clear, or we got the utilities moved, or we managed to finally get that 404 permit to get in the stream. So those type of things happened, and we were seeing huge claims, anywhere from $30 to $50 million a year. This is where the $33 million comes in. That's what we seen sort of as an average every year we were paying in delay claims on projects. One of the things that we've immediately done is stopped allowing our contracts to go out and take bids on them unless all of that is clear, or they're actually out there physically relocating the utilities at that time when that contract's bid. We've put a halt to it in order to make sure. It has caused a slight delay in some of the work going out, but in the long run, it's saving us millions and millions of dollars. A couple other things in this contractor oversight and accountability that they talked about was, looking at our cost estimates and reviewing that. Of course, we have a cost estimating system now that is helping our designers do better estimates so that we have more accurate estimates before we go to contract. And we hope we're going to judge how they're doing and figure that out. So it keeps us more on budget and on schedule. So the other area that was about 10.1 million is computer systems. We have already hired Timmons Group to do a IT and geospatial analysis. They've completed the initial round, and we had done this, as I said, in conjunction before BDO gave us their final findings. We had already put out and solicited to have this done. And part of the reason we did that was we've brought all these new systems online over the last 2 or 3 years. And what we're finding out as we brought these systems online, there's a lot of overlap. So we have some systems tracking the same thing, and that becomes inefficient because which one should govern, or which one do we really not need? Is one system being overlapped by 2 others and we can get rid of one? So trying to figure that out, we hired Timmons Group to come in and review all of our programs and to review how we're storing our data and everything. And they came back with 18 needs identified across 4 tiers. And some of the stuff will start taking place here coming up over the next year or so, but it's going to take a while to get through some of this, because as you train systems around and stuff, it'll take several years. But we're hoping to see over $10 million in savings, and most of that will come out of these 4 areas. And one is, as I made reference to, was data governance, a centralized data repository, and version control. We have no one really keeping track that we're staying up with the most accurate versions, even though we should be. We're finding out that it isn't being followed and kept up things the way they should. And then, of course, training and knowledge management. We've have a lot of turnover and continue to have a lot of turnover. So getting appropriate training documents, and so we can transfer that knowledge to the next generation as things go forward is another priority. And of course, reporting and dashboards and performance analytics. With our new org chart, we do have a new performance asset management division, which will hopefully provide a lot of data for us. We plan to have some dashboards. You have seen some of the dashboards that we've put out as of late that we've already started. We have a dashboard out there, and our maps, there's several different maps. One is the core plan, that you can go on there and see what's being done daily by anywhere in the state by our maintenance crews. That's their plans are out there published for anybody to go and look at. We also have a map out there that shows all the projects that have been completed since this administration come to office. We also have a map showing any active construction projects that are out there since this administration came. And then we have another map that shows the planned construction projects out there. These are all located at the same site on our website. Another big area was to utilize consultants less. And they identified several contracts where we shouldn't be using consultants shouldn't be utilizing consultants. And some of that is in management positions out in our districts and even some in the central office. We've had a lot of difficulty retaining engineers and highly technical areas. And we can't just stop. As you know, if we don't have a bridge engineer in a district, we have to have someone fill that role. They have to evaluate the bridge inspection reports to determine the loads those bridges can carry. That's how we post the bridges or close the bridges. And when we don't have personnel to put in there, we just cannot uncheck those bridges and not rate them. We must, for the safety of the traveling public and everyone, we have to do that. So we've hired consultants to come in and set in those positions and do those roles. And there are multiple areas, but the bridge is one of those areas that it's easy to understand why we don't stop and let those remain vacant. We're still trying to fill those positions, but we've hired consultants. And we end up paying about 3.5 times for a consultant what we would pay for our full-time employee. So it's very costly. And part of this audit says we need to eliminate that. And I think we all agree that that's not a wise decision to use consultants in management positions. So what we've done is we've put together a pay plan to adjust some of these highly technical positions, the engineers and some of the other management positions that set in these critical roles. And we hopefully will be able to implement that and eliminate the use of those consultants. And it will save us quite a bit of money in the long run. We've also started doing a lot more recruitment. We are going to job fairs around the entire state. I myself have been going around and meeting with a lot of the universities and setting in on capstone projects. We have offered the universities to come in and give them a project that we are going to construct, and we work with their senior students to do a design study, something that we would normally pay a consultant to do. Instead, we work with the university. Those students do the design study, come back with a recommended design to be done on that bridge. We then take it on and have it designed by normal engineers and get it constructed, and those students get involved in that. And I think if you will talk to any graduating students at West Virginia Tech or West Virginia University, you will find out that they think that that is probably one of the best classes that they have taken in their career from the college. When I went up and met with the students in the end of April this year, from the students from WVU, most of them said that until they had that class, they were not able to tie all these other classes they took together to see how they work together. But once they had that class, they figured out how it all comes together and what would be needed and done. So we are working to try to help educate those students and try to draw them to us. We've had more interns this year than we've had before. We have taken not just interns in engineering, but in accounting, in legal, just about anything that if they're willing to come to us and we have a position in which they can learn from, we're willing to bring them in as summer interns. So we are trying to recruit across all boards everywhere we can, and we continue to push out and offer help to universities and likewise. And with the decrease in our budget from the Roads to Prosperity, we're also seeing an overall reduction in consultant usage because with that much excess funding that came through with the Roads to Prosperity, we were utilizing consultants much more than was needed. The design work at the districts literally stopped. All they did was manage design contracts. At this point, they have quit managing design contracts and went back to doing design themselves, which has reduced the amount of consultant usage we've had. So that's reduced quite a bit. Sure it turns. Okay, DMV. They had a 1.75 million proposed there. eVision Partners is assisting us with the modernization project. The evaluations were done in May, and we hope to start in July this year, start phasing in. And the current completion date, I believe in the contract, is December of 2029. And what this does, it fully integrates all systems and applications. It basically gets us off the old mainframe so that we don't have to worry about the crash, and makes everything more or less available online. Now, some of this stuff will make things a lot easier for folks. You won't always have to go to a DMV wherever. And part of looking at this has made us sort of rethink the entire future of the DMV. And that's because as this gets modernized and it becomes more online, you're going to see less folks come in to all the offices across the state. And so we have a lot of regional offices, a lot of local offices. And so we're going to start tracking, you know, what that office is bringing in, how many transactions they have, how much money that's generating versus what the cost is for employees and rental and the building and the upkeep. And it also, you know, how much is the wait time at these places, or is it going up? Is it going down? So right now we run about a 20-minute wait time, but there are times in the month when our wait time goes up to 30 to 40 minutes in certain locations. So one of the concepts that we've come up with is to go with a bookmobile type office. You know, the bookmobile shows up in different areas at a certain set time and allows you to get books or whatever. So we're wanting to come up with a mobile DMV office that you can do everything in that mobile office that you can do in one of the locations. And so when one of these offices becomes to the point where we're losing money and it's costing us money to keep open, we would, in theory is we would show up with a mobile office at certain times and be there for like a week and then be gone maybe for a couple of weeks and then show back up for a week, but it would all be scheduled. And that office would move around to these locations and pick up those people. So they have the in-person interaction if they choose, or they can do it online. But to get ready to that point, we have to get something up and get it working. So we are trying to get one together, a mobile office, as quickly as possible, hopefully by the end of the year. Once we get it, the plan is to use it in these locations where we're seeing excessive wait times. So for example, Canal City, say it's a certain time that we know that the wait time is going to go up to 30 to 40 minutes. We pull in out front, sit there with the mobile one and tell folks, you can come here, there's a 10-minute wait, or you can go inside where there's a 30-minute wait. Same service, same things, to your choice. And so we're hope to reduce those wait times at those locations by using that mobile office and move it around. Plus, it'll allow us to get the bugs worked out of the mobile office for in the future. So another area that was in there, and it was about 400,000, is talking about automating the accounts receivable. So when this review was done, they had when they reviewed our accounts receivable process, they seen a lot of issues and inefficiencies in how we were processing things. In the districts is different than what was done in central office, and even there were differences between the districts. So we asked BDO to come in and review our processes in more detail, in addition to what they did and just finding out that this was an issue, but to come in and review it and make recommendations. So they're in the process of doing that for us right now. And that should be completed hopefully around 26 this year. And then we hope to start implementing it. Additionally, while the efficiency audit came up with just accounts receivable, I also asked them to review our accounts payable. I want them both done because we've seen some inefficiencies there also. So they're reviewing both those. We hope that this will all be done and we can get things out and start making changes this year, and it will help us process things a lot better. So it's going to hopefully give us clarify the roles that are being done out in the districts, a record of governance, and it's going to review the tracking and how things are being coded so it's more consistent and transparent. So some of the additional proposals that came in, that's a 2.97 million, was the executive restructure. And this was an org chart that they help us create that adds a few different levels, a couple more levels in there to help organize things a little bit better and help give us better oversight and transparency. It also, we eliminated a lot of positions, close to 30 positions, and by eliminate those, it creates more, it creates the savings that we've said right here, and should make things be a little bit more efficient. And one other issue that they came up with here that in the additional is it has to do with our contracting process, and it is the reading of our bids publicly. When we have a bid letting for our construction contracts, we're required to publicly read the bids aloud to the public. Of course, that takes time and takes staff to do that, and they felt that with our electronic bidding process and all the electronic systems we're using on the construction side, that it was basically a waste of time because no one's listening to it. We have the electronic bids and the bids results published immediately before the people even get started really reading the bids. So at that time, there's no one really listening to it. But it is required, and we require legislative action in order to eliminate that. And then the other thing that they recommended in that also is the advertisement of our projects for the construction side in local and statewide newspapers is a huge possible savings there if we do not have to do that anymore. Because currently, where we do everything electronic on the construction side, all the contractors that are pre-qualified with us sign up for the service, and when we advertise a project, they're notified electronically via email and given a link back to the project and to our website. So none of them really look at that or pay attention to the newspapers and the ads in there. So BDO came back and recommended that we eliminate that also. So how are we going to report this? So we have our Moving Citizens Forward Efficiency Plan. So it will report out in spring of 2027. So you will see a lot of these things that we've talked about, and some others will be in that report. Of course, the Legislative Report Joint Committee on Department of Transportation Accountability. This will be in our report from now on. We'll go through and update things for that. We also will have continuous notification to the public on our website. We will have a link on there that will allow you to see what's going on. The Legislative Annual Report, and then any other reporting available upon request. We will gladly share that. So what kind of support could you give us? Of course, your continued support of any items that impact transportation across the state. A couple things specifically, as I mentioned before, is the procurement bid legislation items. Of course, your support and raise to the engineers, technical folks that we're working on, your support to help do that, to help eliminate the use of consultants in those areas would be greatly appreciated. And of course, your continue and increase the funding to transportation across the state. So as always, as I stand here, I know everyone hates potholes. I do too. But the only way to get rid of potholes is to get our roads on an 8-year or less paving cycle. To get us on an 8-year or less paving cycle, I need $1 billion, and that's with a B, $1 billion a year. And in 8 years, we would eliminate potholes. But for right now, I appreciate everything you all have given us. The 125, I will using it to the maximum that I can. So with that, if you have any questions about this stuff, then I will gladly take those. And I do have copies also if you'd like to see the org charts that I can bring up here.
Thank you. I'd appreciate if you could pass those up to us, to the staff. And the best thing I heard out of this is that we have normal engineers. All right,
do.
the questions, the commissioner. Questions? Gentleman from Randolph County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So when going back to the permitting process and not putting projects out to bid or accepting bids without everything being buttoned up, what is that going to do to the Wardensville to the state line section of Quarter H, given that there's a lawsuit pending there?
Actually, Wardensville is clear. We are good to go. Everything in there is locked down tight enough that we can take bids. Dealing with the lawsuit, that's a whole different ballgame. We are trying to go ahead and get the project out there. If they're going to sue us, we'd like to force that and work through that and be done with it so that we can continue on. We need to keep working on Quarter H. We need to get it done. There are other corridors in this state that need work, and until we finish Quarter H, those will not get it. And so the faster we can get to contract, the better we'll be.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Gentleman from Cabell.
Thank you for being here. What did we pay for the audit for the DOT?
Honestly, I do not know. I do not know what because it was performed through the governor's office. So I'm not sure what they paid for that. We can find out though, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. And what are we paying BDO for the other work that they're doing?
I guess, but I don't want to guess. I can get that number for you though.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Gentleman from Wayne County.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Secretary. With us going online with these companies, eVision and BDO, does it provide a net savings for your total budget?
For the total budget, there will be savings in, we will have to pay for the new system. But of course, we're going to have to do something because we are crashing. And if it crashes, it cuts off access for all our law enforcement and everyone else because they use us to access that. And so we're having to pay to keep those up. In the long run, over time, we will end up saving money as we have the new system and move off of it. But there will be additional costs that we incur by implementing the new modernization system.
The reason I ask, I figured we were losing workforce just because of their job not being necessary with the online stuff, and I want to make sure that we were saving money and not just laying off.
Yeah, we will be. And here's the other thing is we will not be laying off anybody anywhere. Part of what, and I've said this in front of y'all before, is in 10 years, 70% of the DOT workforce can retire. And so keeping people is harder than getting rid of, eliminating positions, because through attrition, they're going to leave a lot faster than we can bring others back on and get them trained.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of attrition. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman from Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Can you explain to me the logic of having an internal audit in the same audit cycle that you're having from BDO? They seem to be duplicative.
Yes. Well, when I came into this, you know, of course, I wanted an efficiency audit done immediately my first day. Because I have been a career person at highways and know that there are a lot of areas that are, things can be done a lot better. And even if we do have something that works right, nothing is ever perfect and there's always ways to improve. So at that point, there had not been a talk of exactly when or if one would be done on us. So I immediately started putting together an efficiency audit internally by bringing in folks and took the upper management out because I didn't want to influence what they felt were the problems and issues. We've got transportation workers on it. We have district managers on it. We have a few division directors on it. But it is all the staff. It is not the upper management involved in these telling them what to do. They have gotten together independently and came up with topics and areas that they think are the problems. Our own folks internally. And that's what they're working on to resolve and come up with. And there are a lot of things that they're doing that are nowhere near to the scale of what BDO recommended. You know, the IT one, it was already started. BDO came up and recognized that too. We'd already had it started, already had Timmons going on it. However, some of these other ones, you know, they're looking at some safety things out there for the transportation workers, things like it. So you have BDO that's looking at these much higher level, big ticket items. And then this efficiency report, while it recognizes those, and we're taking care of them through there, they are down here looking at some of these other lower level items and handling those.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Chairman.
General from Putnam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. You had mentioned about the $1 billion. Is that annual?
Yes.
Annual. So
Yes.
that is that kind of based off, I think y'all had a commission done like 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Well, in 2015, the Blue Ribbon Commission said we needed $1 billion a year then. And this billion that I'm saying is just going to take care, it would only be used on the secondary roads to pave all the secondary roads and keep them up. And it would take 8 years to do that. And so, and continue on $1 billion a year. And it would be used to pave and keep the pavement up on those, on the secondary roads.
We don't have an idea as far as being able to keep up with the other maintenance of bridges and so forth.
I think, you know, you're going to see is some of the numbers that we're doing and as much bridge work as you've encountered, no matter where you travel across the state at this point, you're going to see our bridge numbers are getting much better. I'm not going to say they're perfect, but we're down on the NHS system. I think we're down to a 10.1% poor from a 14. So I'm knocking things down, but it's going to take a few more years, and we're going to keep pounding away as much as I can.
And that potential cost savings, $50 million, that'll be
It's going to roll
somewhere else.
It'll
within
just
the
roll
DOH.
over into our maintenance fund,
Okay.
and it'll be distributed out.
Okay.
It's like I say, I'm not going to hand y'all back money. I'm going to keep taking and taking.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Gentlemen from Montague County.
Thank you, sir. I have seen improvements in the highway system. I'll give you credit for that. My question is, does this audit or report take into any account of preventative maintenance? So where I do see a weakness still is, and especially with these major rainstorms that we're having, is ditching. Culverts plugged up because of leaves in them. And after you clear the water, you take the high water sign down. We do not clear that. Is there any estimate you can put on if we would do a better job at preventative maintenance, that we wouldn't have these roads damaged as much?
As I've talked last year and since I've been here, that I felt that, you know, we do pretty good job with our bridges and are doing much better with them down to 20 foot. But anything that is less than 20 foot to and under, we really don't have a good grasp on that because there are no federal dollars that you can use on those. And so those are sort of the redheaded stepchild left alone. However, in our budget this year, I've allocated so much money over to that for the districts to start working on trying to get a handle on these pipes and culverts that we have problems on. Because right now, the only time we know we have a problem is when we suddenly have a lake where there's not supposed to be a lake, or we have a road collapsing. And if we would catch those things before that happens, it's much cheaper to fix them than it is to go in and fix them after they failed. And so we are trying to get more proactive in that area. I've had conversations with Senator Capito about it, and I believe if you all have seen the new transportation bill, you will see in there that they have put some money in there for a culvert program. And I'm hoping we can get a chunk of that and continue to keep improving our drainage system.
So if I understand you correctly, when I return back to home, I should be able to call the district level and they'll have a plan to show me where the money that they have available now, what culverts, what drainage issues they're planning on working on in the upcoming year.
Yes, they should be putting that in their schedule as part of their core plan.
Thank you very much, sir.
Anybody else? Gentleman from.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. I have a question. I know this audit is talking about the savings to DOT, but on some of the construction projects, like if we shut down lanes on an interstate for 18 months while we're doing something, sometimes we close an exit or limit access to an exit, or whether it be a bridge project and we usually always, the public only sees one shift working. And if it's an 18 months project, what is it? Could the state go in and say, we'd like to run 3 shifts on you, have you get this done in 6 months or 7 months? Because I know there's some cure times on concrete and stuff like that. There's a small bridge project in Mineral County, and the joke is, what did the 2 guys do today? Because you don't ever see 2 guys working on it in the middle of the day. You know, what would it, is there an additional cost, but is there savings to the state economy because we're losing revenue? People don't stop at a gas station, buy stuff, buy fuel that you end up getting the tax. Do we ever look at doing 3 shifts instead of 1?
We do, and it's very costly. It's much, the cost we end up paying for accelerating projects is much more than what it costs to be a nuisance to the public. We try not to do it that often because, one, it's hard for industry itself has a shortage of people. They have a lot of trouble finding good workers. When you start working around the clock, it becomes a safety issue. There are a lot more accidents. You will see a lot more deaths happen out there. You're getting ready to see us try to do one of these accelerating jobs in the middle of Charleston. And I hate to see what our cost is going to be Thursday. That project bids out, and hopefully it will be within reason. But it is one that we have chose to try to accelerate because of the volume of traffic that goes through there. And we'll see what that does. It may come in that we can't do that project. We'll have to go back to the table and try something different. But we do try to analyze that. They do have formulas and things that they use to calculate the cost to the public when we look at a lot of these projects.
And one other question, this is related to DMV. Like we put the stickers on the license plates every year.
Right.
And I know there's 2 million cars registered in Western vehicles. They probably cost, well, I don't know what they cost, 50 cents a piece. That's $1 million. With the state police now having plate readers, do we even need to do that? Is that something we could eliminate and save money?
There are some folks that, you know, they with the readers, they still have to be able to figure out when they expire or not. And that becomes an issue. There's been talk of having it tied to the people's basically the driver's license at the same time, tying it to that date. But again, the problem is figuring out if they're driving on expired tags or not without not being able to see it. There are a lot of issues with that number down there. We are looking at some different options of maybe moving it even up to the windshield, just a number on the windshield. But of course, that ties into other options too, as we work with the Turnpike, and they're looking at probably eliminating the pucks at some point and going to a different system. Because those pucks, while they read fine, they actually make a sticker that you can get and put on there. And so that might be something that we look at incorporating together, is putting the ear on the sticker and putting it on the windshield. So.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay, a couple of things. Are we seeing any problems as far as registrations down because of the way now we're going through it, and people are not recognizing that they're getting a postcard, and they don't recognize the vehicle on the postcard because it doesn't appear on the postcard. So they toss it away, and then they don't see the fact that their tags are becoming expired in 30 days. And I've had several complaints about the fact that they didn't realize their plates had expired because they hadn't gotten anything in the mail. And I tried to explain to them about the postcard. So are we seeing any drop in renewals because of the way we're doing it now?
Well, yeah, you also have to remember that we've also got the 2-year renewal going on too. And
Right.
depending on how that cycles out, we're still trying to figure that out ourselves, because when it started, a lot of people took the 2 years, some took the 1 year. And as this keeps playing out, some years it's going up, some years it's going down. So that has something to do with it. The postcards, believe me, I'm in an argument with them now. I've received postcards. I went on, renewed mine a month ago, and guess what? The other day I got postcards again. And I know I've renewed them because I've received my sticker and put it on my car and went on. So there are some issues, and that's part of the problem is we need to get one system over there that is much better instead of this piecemeal and running off the old mainframe.
Yeah, I'm afraid that we're missing revenue dollars to put into the highway system, because obviously the DMV is one of our chief sources of revenue.
Yes.
For the paving projects around the state, and we want to make sure that we're collecting what's due the state, and that the fact that people are registering their cars, and we still have the same old problem especially in my area, where people register their cars in Belpre and live in Parkersburg, and we seem to have fallen down on doing scans and that kind of thing, to making sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. Again, this is why we need to get a modernized system over there and get everything more consistent, and where we can get a good grasp of what we're losing or not.
Then one other thing, I know that over in Virginia, they used to have an inspection sticker that met in the middle of the windshield for years. And then they had to move those to the side, because now with these sophisticated windshields, they were interfering with the computer in the car. So if we're talking about changing our license decal to the windshield, we need to take that in consideration also, don't you think?
Yeah, it would go not at the bottom, but at the very top, up in the top left corner.
Okay.
Is where it would end up going if we get there. It's sort of like herding cats. I'm trying to work with DMV. I'm trying to work with Turnpike and get them to play together and and try to get this worked out to make it simple for everybody.
All right. Are there any other questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now before the committee is the Acting Secretary for Human Services, Christina Mullins. Would she please come forward? Okay, we're going to allow the acting secretary to make her presentation. And then because of timing, we're going to run out of time before questions. So what we'll do is that we'll have interims in August. And we will bring the acting secretary back at that time and allow her to stand for questions and probably re-go over some of the items that were here. This is a very big part of our budget process. There's been a lot of announcements made by the administration here recently that we don't necessarily agree with. And I know it's a point of controversy for us as a legislature. So, but we'll use the time here now to allow the secretary to go through her presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. My name is Christina Mullins, and I am the Acting Cabinet Secretary for the Department of Human Services. I think tomorrow will make 3 months, and I'm here to review the department's performance evaluation audit with you. So the Office of the Governor commissioned the BDO to conduct a comprehensive performance evaluation of DOHS operations, processes, and systems. Analysis identifies areas where existing processes, policies, and technologies may limit effectiveness or present opportunities for fiscal improvement. Issues identified range from those requiring substantial investment of time and resources to targeted adjustments with minimal or no upfront costs. This has been a productive initiative that has produced a roadmap to help us provide better services to kids and families. We understand that if we operate more efficiently, we can implement our mission better, and we are excited to do this work. The BDO audit provides us with a roadmap, but this slide showcases that some initiatives will require significant time and others both time and initial investments. So this is not just a 1 a year and done initiative. It is for some of these things that are very large, things we've talked about are multi-year initiatives. So the annual report lays out a plan for up to a $68.6 million in potential annual savings across 4 principal categories. We are evaluating all of the recommendations provided in the report, but feasibility does vary across options. So the first category is fiscal discipline and cost containment with a potential savings of $35.5 million. It highlights opportunities to reduce expenditures through improved workflows, enhanced oversight, and strengthened financial controls. Finding 1 is reliance on out-of-state residential service providers. I'll highlight that this is the largest single category for potential savings at $25 million. The time frame for implementation, though, I also want to emphasize is 3 to 5 years. The audit highlights the importance of in-state capacity for residential treatment services. The department continues to work to reduce its reliance on out-of-state providers. We are actively reviewing existing properties that the department owns across West Virginia to establish additional services. This recommendation demonstrates why it is so important that we bring children back to West Virginia for services. We would like to continue to work with you on this important initiative as we do need your help. Finding 2 is the decentralized grants management process. We have already begun significant work in this area. We have revised our boilerplate grant agreement to align with new federal guidelines. We have revised our policy and procedure manual and are actively negotiating an agreement with a specialized company for staff training. As one of the other presenters, I think both of the other presenters alluded to, staff ability and institutional knowledge is critically important in managing these grants and contracts. Finding 3 refers to ineffective payment controls and receivables management. DOH has been working hard to analyze the issues related to Finding 3. Our initial focus has been on services that are provided through social services that are medically necessary. We are working to apply Medicaid rates to those medically necessary services, and we hope to eventually establish a process where the Bureau for Social Services is the payer of last resort in these types of situations. Finding 4 is related to postage costs. Our Office of Shared Administration is working to break down postage costs and identify plans the areas of the highest utilization. Our plan is to reduce utilization of paper checks, eliminate duplicative mailing requirements, and hopefully move to digitalized client notices, particularly during the government shutdown when there was a high need to communicate about SNAP benefits. We needed to use redundant communication patterns, and that was expensive. So we hope to be able to eliminate that. Finding 5 points again, as you noted in transportation, weak oversight of contracted services. This finding really overlaps for me when I'm looking at it with finding 3 in terms of remediation, and previously referenced staff training will be a critical step in our efforts to reduce the costs in this area. The second category is path system limitations with a potential savings of $18.5 million. This analysis focuses on streamlining processes and modernizing legacy infrastructure to achieve significant fiscal improvements and better service delivery. Before proceeding further, though, I need to remind everyone in this room that a PATH RFP is out for bid currently, and we are in the blackout period for that RFP. So my comments on this section are somewhat limited. So for path systems limitations, finding 6, we do have mainframe dependency and needs to do modernization. We are working on this with AWS on a proof of concept to migrate our mainframe programs and data to the cloud. This is a high priority for the agency, and we're meeting on this on a regular basis. For finding 7, path system performance and reliability, path continues to be a concern. We're all aware of that, and we continue to work to mitigate those issues through active contract monitoring and through the RFP process. Finding 8, manual benefits eligibility process. We are currently conducting market research to identify potential technology solutions for manual benefits eligibility determination, but we are also having to balance this with the implementation of HR 1, or the One Big Beautiful Bill. There are changes in our eligibility that we're having to account for as we do this market research. For finding 9, administrative burden and case documentation. This is an area where the Bureau for Social Services has been working diligently to reduce the time to license foster homes and implement systems changes to improve caseloads. So this is also a really active priority for us. So the third category is Medicaid billing and reimbursement with a potential savings of $12.5 million. The key strategies here are refining payment policies to optimize Medicaid expenditures and implement more proactive and rigorous disenrollment procedures. Finding 10 is missed Medicaid reimbursement opportunities. So this is an area for us that we believe has an opportunity for significant cost savings, and it aligns with finding 10. And our initial service, again, has been on services that are provided through social services that are medically necessary. We really want to be able to apply Medicaid rates to those services and eventually establish the process where social services is the payer of last resort, thereby maximizing federal funds that we can draw down. For finding 11, fragmented Medicaid eligibility oversight. The department will continue to maintain process improvements endorsed by the legislative auditors that were developed in response to reporting issues related to Medicaid overpayments for deceased and incarcerated individuals. In addition, we continue to work with CMS to determine if DOHS can use their income verification platform in conjunction with the implementation of the One Big Beautiful Bill. So CMS is evaluating a lot of the electronic solutions, and we're hoping to take advantage of that. So the fourth category is organizational overlap and inefficiency with a potential savings of $2.2 million. The recommendations include simplifying and streamlining administrative functions, particularly in areas where DOHS collaborates with other state agencies. Finding 12 refers to the Bureau for Family Assistance and BSS offices and storage. You'll know those as our county offices. We do continue to conduct reviews on offices and storage facilities. At this time, we are making a concerted effort to minimize reliance on storing paper records. It, though, is absolutely amazing how many records we have stored over the last, I don't even know how many years. So taking time, but we are actively working on that to reduce our reliance on it. So I will combine finding 13 and 14, which is fragmented oversight of human resources and financial operations and procurement. Because these primarily have to do with the Office of Shared Administration and overlap the departments that were previously known as the Department of Health and Human Resources, we are working with the Governor's Office to further evaluate those findings. Barriers, I'll just summarize again. Upfront costs to make the improvement. That's going to be a challenge in some situations. Implementation timeline is not always going to be fast. Some of these are easier than others, and some of them, honestly, we are further along on. We've been working on them. And not all recommendations are equally feasible. I've talked about the key recommendations and highlights already as we move through the presentation. I will not repeat these in the interest of time. But next steps, we are doing ongoing identification and evaluation of new implementation opportunities. We are working to review the BDO report and our work plan every 2 to 4 weeks. We are doing budgetary analysis and trying to identify the ones that are going to bring us the biggest return on investment, and honestly, too, to make the biggest impact on children and families. And we are establishing regular monitoring protocols and delivery of progress reports. And we would be happy, again, to sit down and meet with you at any time or come back in August or any other time to present and share our progress with you. And that's all I have for today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anything else? Is there anything else to come before the committee? Gentleman from Berkeley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move we adjourn.
Gentleman from Berkeley moves we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.